Africa, like much of the world, was colonized early and brutally. The Americas, though colonized, had the courage to rebel, being peers of those oppressing them. South America was likewise colonized, but the immigrants from Europe established independence there too. However, the North American Indians and those in South America still suffer at the hands of the colonists or their usurpers. Countries such as India endured a prolonged struggle to shake off colonists, as Gandhi's history attests. East Timor was almost beaten to death by brutality before the world finally cried enough. The Australian Aboriginal remained the underclass, despite representing a superior culture in human terms. Castro has enemies still because he refused to reinstate the gambling and drug, smuggling interests of the elite, who had found Cuba very useful. Indeed, the calls for replacing Castro are less about the lifestyles and health of the Cuban people, who could benefit from simple trade restraints being lifted. The shouting is rather from those who still hope to reinstate gambling and their illicit trade routes in Cuba, and are being frustrated. And Africa, almost without exception, is only lately gaining independence, and then only in name, not action. Corporate interests, supported by those countries with interests in the area, are still ruling brutally. But just as democracies are increasingly emerging around the globe, so the heads of the oppressed are raising, questioning, and demanding their rights at long last. The cry, of course, from those losing a grip on their slave classes and the riches of the lands owned by rights to the oppressed, is for the better good. Corporate interests, or the interests of governing parties who stand to benefit, claim it is in the interest of the people to leave those formerly in charge. They warn that starvation will ensue, jobs will be lost, an economy so fragile and recently constructed will crash, and all manner of horror stories to delay the return of land and land use rights to the oppressed rightful owners. Is there truth in this? Only if those wanting continued control make it happen. If medicine, routing of food and protection is withheld, then of course suffering will occur, and such manipulation is tried repeatedly in this game. When will the game stop? When the pole shift cuts off communication and resources from the oppressors, the worm will turn. It is then that the oppressor will be turning for help to those oppressed, who will often remember horrors done recently to them. Not a pleasant ending, but on one reflecting the karma that often occurs in a given individual's lifetime, due to their own actions in that lifetime